The lecture hall was packed, 217 cadets from 43 different species, all crammed into the tiered seating of the Galactic Defense Academy's most prestigious combat theory class. Professor Velthor, a Crethian with 6 eyes and an ego twice as large, was mid-sentence about optimal retreat formations when the simulation alarm blared. Now, I should mention something here. When you're a multi-species educational institution trying to prepare the galaxy's future defenders, you run drills. Lots of drills. Combat scenarios, evacuation protocols, hostage situations, you name it, they've simulated it. The students knew this. They'd done 17 drills already this semester. What they didn't know was that this time, it wasn't a drill. The doors sealed with a hiss that made everyone's chitinous plates, scales, or skin, depending on species, prickle with unease. The lights shifted to emergency crimson, and then the voice came through the speakers. Cold, mechanical, utterly devoid of mercy. Lockdown protocol initiated. Hostile force detected. All cadets remained seated. Professor Velthor's 6 eyes widened. Well, 5 of them did. The 6th had a permanent squint from a sparring accident he never shut up about. And he moved toward the control panel. Before he could reach it, the door to the auxiliary entrance exploded inward, not opened. Exploded. Through the smoke came 4 figures in black tactical armor, weapons raised, moving with the kind of precision that made it clear they'd done this before. Insurgents, specifically the Talvesh Liberation Front, a radical splinter group that believed the Academy's multi-species cooperation was diluting their cultural purity or some such nonsense. Honestly, extremists are exhausting regardless of which appendages they use to hold their weapons. The lead insurgent, a Talvesh with crimson markings that denoted high rank in their twisted hierarchy, swept his weapon across the room. Nobody moves. You're all hostages now. The Academy will meet our demands, or we start reducing your class size. 217 cadets froze. Well, 216. Because in the 3rd row, right side, sitting between a Quillari with iridescent wings and a Heptar, whose 4 arms were currently raised in surrender, was Cadet Rhea Kwan, human. 22 standard years old, 5'6". 130 pounds soaking wet, as her species liked to say. Brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, dark eyes that were currently assessing every angle of the room with the kind of cold calculation that would have made a Vextari combat computer jealous. The thing about humans, and listen, I've been observing civilizations for 17,000 cycles, so I know what I'm talking about, is that they have this unfortunate genetic quirk. When faced with overwhelming danger, when every logical synapse should be screaming freeze, comply, survive, there's this other part of their brain that whispers something far more reckless. Or you could do something about it. Rhea's hand moved to her pocket. Slowly. So slowly that the Quillari beside her didn't even notice. Her fingers closed around her personal comm device, a slim piece of tech that every cadet carried but that doubled for humans who knew what they were doing, as something far more useful. The insurgents were spreading out now, weapons trained on different sections of the hull. 4 of them against 200+ students. The math seemed insane until you factored in shock, fear, and the universal truth that most sentient beings don't want to die before lunch. Professor Velthor, credit where it's due, tried diplomacy. Gentlemen, this is an educational institution. These are students. Whatever grievance, the leader shot the ceiling. The plasma bolts seared through the reinforced material, raining sparks and debris. The next one goes through a student. Sit down, Professor. Velthor sat. Even his permanently squinted eye looked wide now. That's when Rhea stood up. I know what you're thinking. Surely the human wasn't that stupid. Surely some survival instinct kicked in. But see, here's what you have to understand about humans and their evolutionary history. They're from a death world, capital D, capital W, a planet so catastrophically hostile that their ancestors had to out stubborn extinction on a daily basis. Fight or flight response. Humans got a third option, fight anyway, even when flight makes more sense. Every weapon in the room swiveled toward her. 4 insurgents, 4 plasma rifles, all suddenly very interested in the small human standing in the middle of a room full of people wisely staying seated. The leader's voice crackled through his helmet. "Sit down," Rhea smiled. And, oh, that smile. "I've seen Vexthery war protocols, witnessed Crithian battle rage, observed Talvesh fanaticism. None of it was quite as unsettling as a human smiling when they absolutely shouldn't be. You know what's funny?" she said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "This is supposed to be a combat theory class, and you just walked in and provided us with a practical examination." The insurgent's finger tightened on the trigger. "Last warning, human. See, the thing about hostage situations." Rhea was walking now, moving laterally along the row, hands visible, comm device palmed so smoothly that even I almost missed it, as they rely on fear. On the hostages believing they're powerless. On them choosing survival over action. She tapped her comm device 3 times against her thigh. A signal. To whom? Well, we're about to find out, but here's what you didn't account for. She stopped walking, stood perfectly still, that smile never wavering. "You locked yourself in here with 217 cadets from the Galactic Defense Academy. Every single one of us is training to be a soldier. Every single one of us has been studying your tactics, your weaknesses, your predictable patterns for months." The leader laughed, bitter, harsh. Big words for someone about. The lights went out. Not emergency lights. Not even the backup systems. Complete, total darkness. And in that darkness, Rhea moved. Now, I should explain something about human vision. It's not particularly impressive compared to most species. They can't see in infrared like the Velkari, don't have the night vision of the Quillari, lack the echolocation of the Heptar. What humans do have, however, is pattern recognition that borders on precognition, muscle memory developed through their persistence hunting ancestry, and this is key. The absolute lack of common sense to not attack armed insurgents in the dark. Rhea had counted steps, memorized positions, calculated trajectories, all in the 30 seconds between the insurgents entering and the lights cutting out. The first insurgent went down when she grabbed his weapon arm, used his own forward momentum against him, and underdued his helmet to the edge of a desk with a crack that echoed through the darkness. His rifle clattered away. The second one managed to get a shot off, but plasma fire in complete darkness is just a bright advertisement of your position. Rhea dropped, rolled, came up inside his guard, and hit him with a strike to the throat. Humans studied vulnerable points on 43 species, remember, that dropped him gasping. The third insurgent was smarter. He stayed still, listening. Rhea could hear him breathing, hear the thuddle whir of his armor's servos. She grabbed someone's backpack, random Velkari student, and hurled it across the room. The insurgent fired at the sound. Rhea was already moving, coming from his blind side, and when she hit him with every ounce of that deceptively small human frame. They went down together, grappling. He outweighed her by 80 pounds. Didn't matter. Humans learned to fight on a planet where everything outweighed them and wanted them dead. She got her arm around his neck. A rear naked choke, I believe they call it, which is a ridiculous name for something so effective, and squeezed until he stopped struggling. 3 down, 1 left. The leader was panicking now, firing randomly into the darkness. And that was his mistake. Plasma leaves an afterimage. Rhea could track each shot, calculate his position, adjust her approach. She moved between the desks, silent as death, while 216 other cadets held their collective breath. She found him by the auxiliary door, his back to the wall, weapons sweeping in arcs. And here's where Rhea did something unexpected. She didn't attack. You know what we learned last week in this class? Her voice came from the darkness, impossible to pinpoint. The psychological impact of isolation on hostile forces. How quickly confidence erodes when you realize you're alone. The leader fired toward her voice. She wasn't there anymore. Your team is down. The Academy security will breach this room in. She paused, checked her comm, 90 seconds. You have 2 choices. Surrender, or I make sure you don't walk out of here. You're bluffing, the leader snarled, but his voice shook. You're just a student, Rhea laughed. soft, cold. I'm human. We invented bluffing. We also invented not bluffing when everyone assumes we are. Want to test which one this is? The lights came back on. Rhea stood 5 feet from the insurgent leader, empty-handed, completely relaxed, with 3 unconscious bodies scattered behind her, and 216 cadets staring in absolute slack-jawed disbelief. The leader's weapon was pointed directly at her chest, and she was still smiling. 90 seconds, she repeated, tapping her comm device. Clock's ticking. Here's the thing about insurgent leaders. They're usually great at inspiring fanaticism in others. But when their carefully planned operation turns into a disaster movie starring them as the victim, well, decision-making skills tend to deteriorate rapidly. He made the wrong choice. He fired. Rhea moved. Not away toward, because humans, bless their suicidal little hearts, have this ability to process threat velocity and calculate interception angles in microseconds. The plasma bolt passed through the space where her torso had been approximately half a heartbeat ago, and she was already inside his guard, one hand deflecting the weapon upward, the other delivering a palm strike to his helmet that cracked the visor and probably rang his brain like a dinner bell. The rifle clattered to the floor. The leader stumbled backward, dazed, and Rhea, because she apparently hadn't used up her entire lifetime supply of audacity yet, swept his legs and put him face down on the floor with her knee on his back and his own weapon disassembled into 3 non-functional pieces, scattered across the ground. Total elapsed time from lights on to insurgent neutralized, 7 seconds. Professor Valthor finally remembered he had a voice. Cadet Kwan, what in the 17 hells? The main doors exploded inward, again with the explosions. Honestly, did nobody in this facility believe in just opening doorings normally? And Academy security flooded in, weapons raised, tactical visors engaged, looking extremely professional and also extremely late to the party. The security commander, a grizzled heptar named Commander Breck with scars that suggested he'd earned his position through experience rather than politics, surveyed the scene. 4 insurgents down. 1 human cadet standing over the leader. 216 witnesses, looking like they'd just watched their understanding of reality get folded into a paper airplane and thrown out the window. Someone want to explain, Breck said slowly, his forearms crossed in what I can only describe as aggressive disappointment. Why my hostage situation resolved itself before I got here. Rhea raised her hand. Politely, like she was asking permission to visit the restroom. Sir, Cadet Rhea Kwan, 3rd year tactical operations. I initiated an emergency response protocol when the insurgents breached the auxiliary entrance, cut the lights using the maintenance override. I may or may not have memorized during orientation, engaged hostile targets while they were disoriented, and secured the classroom. You may or may not have memorized? I definitely memorized it, sir, but I wasn't sure if admitting that would get me in trouble for unauthorized system access. One of Breck's eyes twitched, just one. The others remained locked on Rhea with an expression that hovered somewhere between impressed and furious. You engaged 4 armed insurgents. Alone. In the dark. Yes, sir. Without backup. The 216 other cadets in this room are my backup, sir. I just didn't need them yet. Yet, Breck repeated flatly. Well, sir, if there had been 5 insurgents, I'd have needed help with the last one. Humans can only track 4 opponents simultaneously before our pattern recognition starts throwing errors. It's a neurological limitation we're working on overcoming through training. I need to interrupt here to mention that the other cadets were now looking at Rhea like she'd sprouted wings and started reciting poetry in dead languages. The Quillary beside her, a cadet named Shira, who'd been partnered with Rhea on 3 previous training exercises, leaned over and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. You've been holding back in sparring sessions, haven't you? Rhea shrugged. I mean, breaking bones during practice seems counterproductive to the whole team-building exercise. She's been going easy on us, Shira announced to the room at large. The human has been going easy on us. A Crithian cadet in the back name of Torvin, built like a mobile fortress, stood up slowly. Cadet Kwan, when you submitted me in 17 seconds during last month's grappling tournament, could have been 14 seconds if I'd wanted to dislocate your shoulder. But again, team building, Rhea confirmed cheerfully. Commander Breck held up one of his 4 hands. Everyone shut up. Medical teams, take these insurgents into custody. Professor Velthor, your classroom is now a crime scene. Class dismissed. He pointed one thick finger at Rhea. You, with me, now. The walk to Breck's office was silent except for the click of his boots and Rhea's softer footfalls. Other cadets parted like water around a ship's prow as they passed through the corridors. Word had already spread, academy gossip traveled faster than light, apparently. And by the time they reached the administrative wing, Rhea was being stared at like she was either a war hero or a ticking bomb. Possibly both. Breck's office was sparse, functional. 3 commendation plaques on the wall, a desk that had seen better decades, and a window overlooking the academy's training grounds, where first-year cadets were currently failing to complete a basic obstacle course that Rhea had, according to her file, finished in record time while carrying an injured teammate, because of course she had. Breck sat, gestured for Rhea to sit. She remained standing. At ease, cadet. I am at ease, sir. This is just how humans stand when we're waiting to find out if we're being commended or court-martialed. One of Breck's eyes twitched again. You violated approximately 17 academy protocols today. You accessed emergency systems without authorization. You engaged hostile forces without waiting for security. You endangered yourself and potentially other students through reckless action. Yes, sir. You also neutralized a terrorist threat, prevented potential casualties, and demonstrated tactical acumen that most of my security officers won't develop until year 10 of active duty. Also, yes, sir. Breck leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously. Do you know why we run drills, Cadet Kwan? To prepare cadets for real crisis scenarios through repetition and controlled exposure to danger, sir. No. Well, yes, but that's the textbook answer. The real reason is to train you to wait for professionals, to not be a hero, because heroes get themselves and others killed. Rhea met his gaze steadily. With respect, sir, the professionals weren't there yet. Someone had to act, and you decided that someone should be you. I decided that someone could be me, sir. There's a difference. Breck pulled up a holographic display. Rhea's academy file, scores, evaluations, disciplinary history. Remarkably clean except for one incident involving an unauthorized modification to a training drone that made it more challenging because apparently standard difficulty settings were too boring. Your instructor's notes are consistent, Breck said, scrolling through evaluations. Exceptional tactical mind, superior combat skills, tendency to hold back in training exercises to avoid injuring classmates, quiet, reserved. Doesn't volunteer opinions, unless directly asked. Is there a question coming, sir? Why do you hold back? Rhea was quiet for a moment. Then, because I'm human, sir, we have a reputation. Fair or not, people assume we're aggressive, violent, dangerous. If I went full intensity in every sparring match, I'd confirm every stereotype about my species. I'd rather surprise people when it actually matters. Like today. Sir. Breck closed the holographic display. You're going to be famous by dinner. Every cadet in this academy is going to know what you did. Some will be inspired. Others will be intimidated. A few will be resentful that you made them look incompetent by comparison. I didn't make anyone look incompetent, sir. I just responded to a crisis situation with my training. Your training, Breck repeated, pulling up another file. According to this, you come from Earth's Manila district, military family. Your mother was a tactical instructor, your father a combat medic. You grew up on military bases, trained in 6 different martial arts before you were 16, scored in the 99th percentile on every academy entrance exam, the 98th percentile on theoretical xenobiology, sir. I got one question wrong about quillary reproductive cycles. Still bitter about it, and you never thought to mention any of this to your classmates. They never asked, sir. Breck stood, walked to the window, his back to Rhea. The Talvesh Liberation Front will target you now. You humiliated them, made them look weak. That's not a threat you can punch in the throat and walk away from. I'm aware, sir. You'll need protection. Enhanced security protocols. Possibly a transfer to a more secure facility. No, sir. Breck turned, all four eyes fixing on her. That wasn't a suggestion, Cadet. And this isn't a request, sir. With respect, if I let terrorists dictate where I can train, what I can do, how I can live, they've already won. I'm staying. I'm finishing my education. And if they come for me again, she smiled that unsettling smile. Well, I'll just have to be more efficient next time. The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed. A deep, rumbling sound that shook his armored plates. You humans. You absolute lunatics. Fine. You want to stay? You stay. But you're training my security team twice a week. Those idiots need to learn how you took down 4 armed hostiles in less than 3 minutes. 2 minutes 47 seconds, sir. But who's counting? Dismissed, Cadet. And Kwan. Breck's expression grew serious. What you did today, that was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've seen in 20 years of service. I haven't decided which yet. Rhea saluted. Often the same thing, sir. Depends on whether you survive. She left the office and found the entire hallway packed with cadets. Torvin, Shira, dozens of others from the classroom, plus students from other years who'd heard the story. They parted silently, forming a corridor, and then slowly at first, then building, they began to clap. Not the polite applause you'd give a graduation speaker. The kind of thunderous, stomping, cheering acclaim that shakes foundations and makes you believe, for just a moment, that maybe heroes aren't completely extinct after all. Rhea walked through it with her head high, nodding at familiar faces, and when she reached the end of that gauntlet of respect, she turned back and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Same time next week for study group. And somebody please bring snacks that aren't biologically incompatible with my species. I'm tired of pretending fermented Crithian grain paste tastes good." The laughter that followed was genuine, warm, and thoroughly human in spirit, if not in origin. Because here's the final thing about humans that makes them simultaneously terrifying and inspiring to every other species in the galaxy. They don't just survive impossible situations. They survive them, make jokes about them, and then show up the next day ready to do it all again. That classroom turned violent. 4 insurgents walked in, expecting easy prey. What they got instead was a reminder that humans, small, fragile, ridiculously persistent humans, don't become prey, they become problems. And on that day, Cadet Rhea Kwan became the galaxy's favorite problem, one calculated risk at a time.